start anything on fire. But the food, once it's cooked, then comes in underneath the structure. So again, some kind of awning, pop-up tent, anything you have such as that, that's required. Hand washing. Hand washing is critically important. So if you're going to handle or cook foods, temporary hand wash. And basically what it is it's real simple to do. You get an insulated container, something like the coolers that you would see, those orange igloo coolers with the spout or a spigot. You can get a container like that, and then a bucket, obviously, to catch the water, a container of hand soap, pump hand soap for $1 from the dollar store, and a roll of paper towels to wash your hands. Okay, that's as simple as the hand wash setup needs to be. And then, if you're cooking hot foods, you make sure hot foods stay hot, and if you have cold foods, you make sure cold foods stay cold. So what you can do is use coolers and put it on ice, or if it's something that can be frozen, and then you put it in the cooler to allow it to thaw and serve it, that's perfectly acceptable too. And then again, if you're cooking something, you need to have some source to keep it hot. So the grill, if you're, again, making hamburgers or hot dogs, something like that, or if you're doing it, if you have a chili and you're bringing it out there, you need to make sure that you keep it on a burner of some sort or a crock pot. And what you want to do, since this is an outdoor event, is keep the food preparation to a minimum. So basically, buy as much as you can of things that are already pre-prepared or ready-to-eat foods. So ready-to-eat foods would be an example of like your hamburger and hot dog buns, your condiments, the chips. You might go to the store and buy salsa. You might buy some ranch dip for your potato chips, those types of things. Those are considered ready-to-eat foods. And those are the kinds of foods that we would like you to get, but we also need to remind you that all your food needs to come from what we call an approved source. And an approved source is an operation that has a regulatory authority that comes through it. So some type of inspector. So for instance, if you go to Walmart, they have a health inspector like me from Maricopa County that goes in there and inspects it. So any of the food in a Walmart would be acceptable for you to purchase. We don't want you preparing foods in your home and bringing them to this event. That's a no-no. And again, like Anna was saying, I always use that example, is we can't go in we're not allowed to go in your house and regulate what you're doing in your own kitchen. We can go into all commercial kitchens, but we can't go into your house. So if you do have animals, cats and dogs, obviously, in most households, those animals are allowed in your kitchen. In a commercial establishment, no dogs or cats are allowed in a commercial kitchen, okay? Germs, hair, dirt, etc. We don't want that there. I always use the example, too, as if you have small children. You know, it's up on the table with the shoes, with the feet, with the little dupa. You know, and sometimes people, they don't think, and they change their babies' diapers on tables and counters. The other thing, too, is I can't see that if you want to make your own homemade chocolate chip cookies, that you're there with the blender and you really like dough. And so you're in there digging away or looking on the spatula, and then the spatula goes back in there to then, you know, put on the cookie sheet. I can't see all those things. So that's why it's not allowed, because we don't know what you're doing in your house. But when it's in a commercial kitchen, there's hand wash sinks there for them, there's dishwashing methods for them, they can clean things up, they have the proper cleaners like sanitizers to clean counters and their equipment. They have the proper cooking equipment so that if you're going to cook a chicken, they'll cook it. They have equipment to check the temperature, etc. So it goes on and on like that. So that's really the main reason why we don't allow you to prepare foods in your own home and then bring them to an event where you're going to give them to the public So does anybody have any questions in regards to foods they want to bring or that they think that they're going to prepare or?
A quick question.
Okay.
Food handlers cards?
Yeah.
Does everybody on your team have to have one?
No.
One person?
It's encouraged to have at least one individual that has a food handler's card, but for most special events, we don't require that you have a food handler's card. So coming to something like this where I tell you kind of like what the minimum standards were, hot, cold, hand wash, structure, that's really the basics. If, I don't know, is anybody going to have to be on dirt or grass?
We're on grass. Yeah, we're
on
on
grass?
All the tent sites are on grass.
Except for Bart. Bart will be out there again, but we keep him on the concrete.
On the concrete?
We move him
Okay.
over to the concrete.
Well, if you're on grass and where you have your food set up, so if you have a table with your condiments and your ready-to-eat foods, you probably should have some kind of alternative flooring underneath that area so that you don't stir up grass and bugs and dust and things like that to land on the food. And it's easy as just putting down a plastic tarp. I mean, you can do something that inexpensive. You can also roll out the red carpet to have indoor-outdoor carpeting. You can bring a plywood board if you want to put that down in that area so that it's relatively cleanable. So those are some options.
So, Veronica, we're just going to be selling cookies at a table. You want us to have a covering as well, even though like we'll do the Costco things with the clamshells, and if we shut it right away, he still wants to have a covering.
Yeah.
So for hamburgers, are you saying that it's not required that we have a food handler's card or?
No, you don't need to, but it's encouraged that your group or someone maybe has a grip or knowledge about how to cook those hamburgers. Because do you personally know what temperature you need to cook a hamburger to?
They had their thermometer
Okay.
out.
Well, it's really important to know that, and that's why it's nice to have someone that is a food handler, because they might have that information. But you do want to make sure that you cook your hamburgers, and you should take a thermometer, especially when you're working with raw foods, is to have an internal temperature of 155 degrees. Okay? And the reason for that is the E. coli bacteria, and I think just recently too, or even maybe yesterday, was it Safeway that recalled ground beef again, or one of the brands, ground beef was recalled because of E. coli. I don't really know why they keep doing that, because it is a nasty thing, because E. coli actually is from fecal matter. So it's poo that's gotten into your food. Yeah, yeah. But almost all ground beef really does have some bit.
We never are going to want to eat ever again.
Well, see, then you'll all turn into vegetarians by the end of this lecture.
And actually, I think last time too, they did frozen. Theirs were all frozen up until the time you were ready to use
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
I know I saw a
One of
thermometer.
the,
over
yeah,
there.
We have one person who has a food handler.
Okay. One of the important things for you guys is to make sure that you don't commingle your frozen hamburger patties with any of your other foods. Because if for any reason they were to thaw or they were stored with ready-to-eat foods, there's no way to kill that bacteria if it's actually on your hamburgers, the raw food. So you want a separate cooler or container for the hamburgers and then everything else. Okay? Anybody else have comments?
I have a comment.
Sure.
You didn't mention gloves. So you always require to wear gloves, right?
Well, hand washing, if you have the hand washing, there's no substitute for hand washing. Sanitizers, hand sanitizers are not acceptable, and only gloves are not acceptable either. You must, if you're working with unpackaged foods, you need to wash your hands. So, but if it's easy to handle the food with with just a gloved hand, that's acceptable. But what we encourage you to do is have gloves or the proper utensils. So if you have tongs and spoons and ladles or whatever you're using, or for whatever you're cooking or holding, that's acceptable too. But you know, sometimes it's easy just instead of a tong, it's kind of awkward, and with the cookie, it's easier just to pick it up with the gloved hand and put it on
So
the
we're okay,
plate.
I mean, the box comes like 500 in a box, and you
Yeah.
just grab a new one every time.
Yeah.
That'd be all right.
Yeah.
Look at that. Thanks.
When you go from raw to cooked foods, especially in the hamburger situation, that's where you want to make sure that that person changes out their gloves, so they're not taking any of that contamination from the raw and putting it on anything else. That's why it's kind of important, and I know that a lot of you guys have probably recognized this when you go into any kind of fast food place. Usually they'll have an individual that only takes money, and they may turn around and get something, but it's already packaged. Or they turn around and they're just handling the outside of the container, the cup, the wrapped sandwich, something like that, and then putting it in a bag and giving it to you. So it's kind of nice for you to decide who's going to do what, and then that way, I don't know if there'll be any money exchanged at your event, but if there is, it's kind of nice to give people designated positions so that there isn't any cross-contamination going on that way too. Yeah.
Can you kind of touch on if you have food donated, like how you're supposed to go about doing that with food waivers?
Yes. If you have to go pick the food up, again, if it's cold or hot, you want to have some way to be able to keep that food, hot or cold, to the event in transportation. So the best way to do that is either ask the restaurant if they have any portable equipment that can come here and it can be returned. So for instance, if you get pizzas and they have those insulated bags that you can keep the pizzas in. If you get foods and they don't have anything, coolers. Again, coolers are a really good piece of equipment. They're insulated, so if you put all hot foods in there and you close the door, all hot foods are going to stay hot. And then the same thing with cold. If you have cold, you might want to add some ice to it. Just depends on how long of a travel it is, or how long you might need to have it outside, or if it's actually going to be kept stored in there until you serve it. You'll want to keep it in a cooler with ice. But it's really important on timing for those foods that you get donated if they need to be hot or cold. So what you should do is arrange to, with that restaurant or that food establishment, to go there just prior to arriving here before the food is going to be served, if that's possible. Because I know you guys do an overnight kind of thing, but you do need to let whomever is putting this together as far as allowing you to be out there with the food source, so you have enough electricity if you do have to plug things in, if you're not fortunate enough like the guys here to have a grill.
And usually and I think last time we limited anything that needed to be like that. I mean, that apple dumpling, remember that restaurant?
Yeah.
They're going to come out again, and they had a whole nifty setup with their own hand wash,
Okay.
with everything. They only did it for a few hours. They
Okay.
weren't, there was such a limited amount of time that they sold hamburgers.
Oh, so they're going to, apple dumplings going to come out to sell
Yep.
for you? Okay.
Yep, they're going to be out there again. Bart will be out there. So those are the ones that are kind of the longer.
Okay.
Other than that, we kind of limited it, because then it,
Sure.
and the survivor dinner. Bocce's is doing it, and they're like about 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes away. But we bring it here, we serve it immediately to all the survivors and the families, and then we're done.
Yeah.
It
that's what
goes
we
away
want.
very quickly. We scoop it up and it's gone.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. So the more cookies and cupcakes, the better. That's what I like to see.
So we should have all of those things to you very quickly. The guys already filled out theirs tonight. I think we had a couple of others that are already here. The waiver form's already set.
Okay,
So you'll get them nice and early.
excellent.
At least from the Polytechnic campus, we need to get on Tempe pretty quickly.
Now, when is your event?
April 8th.
April 8th. Okay. Yeah, so you want to make sure